My name is Francisco Ulloa, and I work here in Sanoviv. My specialty is in homeopathy. And, well, a good way to start a webinar is like this one, with a high level of stress. You know, as a good doctor, I'm not into the IT things, but apparently we are okay now. Okay, well, the topic, this webinar that I prepared for you, and Karen, I thank Karen that she invited me to do and to share with you this perspective. I choose this topic that is called physiological response to stress. And why I choose this? Well, I choose it because you will hear from every single media and from people to people, person to person, that stress is the enemy, is a modern enemy that is affecting and attacking our society, and several diseases are produced by stress and whatever, blah, 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 blah. Yes, it is right. It is presented. Stress is something that we live with, but it's not the stress the one that produces the disease on us. The reality is that it's our response to the stress, the one that is conditioning that those myriad multiple diseases that can be presented from stress. So that's why I name it like that, because the reality is that we respond in a normal way to the stress. So what we have to learn is how this stress is affecting me, how am I reacting to the stress, and how to do for not allow the stress produce disease on me, because you know we will live with the stress. That's something that is inevitable. Okay, so well, this webinar has some objectives, and I want to accomplish in this time. The first one is to describe the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is where the stress response comes from. Describing and understanding fight or flight response. Number 3 is physiological organic changes due to stress. We also want to understand the physiological response to stress, and finally, in the end, how to live with stress. And I personally believe this is very important, because we will always live with the stress, and it's very important for us to learn how to live with it and how to succeed and be as healthy as possible despite the stress. And this picture is just to remind you, or to show you that in our brains is where the autonomic nervous system is configured. And very primitive areas in our brain, like the limbic area, the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, all these areas in our brains are in charge of controlling the autonomic nervous system. And this part of the brain is shared with other mammals. We share this part of our brains because the mammals, the animals, also respond to stress. And they have exactly the same response as us. But our brains have evolved. And we have several other functions, like the neocortex, that I'm showing you here, that is in charge of all the cognitive functions. Well, but now we're going to focus our attention into the limbic area, or primitive area in our brains. And from the brain, then several nerves transmit the impulses through the spine. From the spine, the nerves transmit these impulses to the organs. And in this way, from the brain, through the spine, through the nerves, and getting into the organs, is how we can control our visceral function. The part of the brain that is in charge of the visceral function is the autonomic nervous system. And this is a very clear example of how the autonomic nervous system controls the body. On your left side, it is described the sympathetic nervous system, and in the right side, you can see the parasympathetic nervous system. These two systems are called autonomic or autonomous nervous system. And as you can see, The control of the visceral control or the autonomic control of our body is in charge of these two systems. And it's very interesting how the two systems complement each other. Many years ago, they used to say that the sympathetic nervous system is agonist to the parasympathetic nervous system. So that means that one is against the other. And it's not like that. The reality is that the two systems complement each other. And when one system, let's say, is overstimulated and start controlling the body and changing the body in some way, after this system interferes or achieve the organic function that it was looking for, then the other system comes to compensate the first one. And it's a way the system works in several organs. So I will show you many more things, but I just want to highlight one example. And let's go in a very simple example to say or to explain is the heart. If you see the heart, you can see the nerves that comes from the sympathetic nervous system. So all the cardiological function are stimulated by the sympathetic nervous system. You can see here how the sympathetic nervous system accelerates the heart rate. And in the other side, the parasympathetic nervous system slows down the heartbeats. And in this way, by sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system discharges, we can control our heart function. And I just quote one example, but there's many examples we can explain. The physiological response to stress is exactly this one, the fight or flight response. And let me tell you something. We evolved thanks to this response. Because nowadays, there's no problem. I mean, well, we don't have the same problems as the caveman has. And as a caveman, we need to understand how these people lived at that time. Because our bodies still reacting the same as a caveman. We haven't changed. We haven't changed. And I usually don't like to put too many letters or written into my presentations, but I choose to do this because I want to tell a story to you, for you to understand exactly my point. So I'm going to read this with my Spanish accent. Sorry about that, but I want to read it for you. It's a story, remember. So imagine that you are a caveman out innocently picking berries when suddenly you come nose to nose with a saber-toothed tiger. So while you were simply gathering, the tiger was actually hunting, and the sight of you makes his mouth water. Luckily for you, millions of years of evolution has endowed you with a set of automatic waveforms that take over in the event of an emergency. At the sight of the tiger, your hypothalamus sends a message to your adrenal glands, and within seconds, you can run faster, hit harder, see better, hear more accurately, think faster, and jump higher than you could not only seconds earlier. Your heart is pumping at 2 to 3 times the normal speed, sending nutrient-rich blood to the major muscles in your arms and legs. The tiny blood vessels, called capillaries, under the surface of your skin close down, which consequently sends your blood pressure soaring, so you can sustain a surface wound and not bleed to death. Even your eyes dilate so you can see better. All functions of your body not needed for the struggle about the commands are shut down. Digestion stops, sexual function stops, even your immune system is temporarily turned off. If necessary, excess waste is eliminated to make you light on your feet. Yes, you're right, I'm saying that, sorry. Your suddenly supercharged body is designed to help level the odds between you and your attacker. Consequently, you narrowly escape death by leaping higher and running faster than you ever could before, With the danger now over, you find a safe place to lie down and rest your exhausted body. Okay, sorry about the story. Maybe I want to make it entertaining and fun for you. But my point here is, remember what I described minutes ago? Remember that I described that the digestive function stops, the sexual function stops, the body sends all the blood to the major organs, the major muscles. The system is precisely putting you in a safe modality, in alert modality to be safe, okay? And when I was reading this, I was imagining how many diseases that have been described as disease, like a condition like high blood pressure, irritable bowel syndrome, gastritis, insomnia, migraines, you name it, cramps, cervical pain, back pain. Well, I can continue. A huge list of symptoms and conditions came into my mind when I was describing the fight and flight response. Well, imagine how many people we see every day that is living like that is experiencing in daily basis this response and never have the ability to turn it off. Well, so now you will imagine how many diseases we are producing ourselves because of this survival mechanism activated constantly. So, but I want to highlight something. At this point, what the threat is not a saber, this type of tigers, okay? Luckily not. But we are facing other type of tigers. We are concerned about the job, about the finances, about the loan, about the, well, about our health, the health of our loved ones. We are reacting because of a divorce, because of a grief, or, well, you can imagine. So whatever is producing or triggering this reaction in our body will reproduce exactly what I described a few minutes ago. And in this chart, you can see, again, how the hypothalamus, when is triggered, the fight or flight response, you will activate several responses. In one side, will activate the sympathetic nervous system to activate the adrenal glands, the medulla of the adrenal glands, to produce or to release epinephrine and norepinephrine, adrenaline and noradrenaline. The one will go to the bloodstream and will produce what we call the fight or flight response. But also, the activation of the sympathetic nervous system the impulses activate glands and smooth muscles, and will also reproduce all the combination of symptoms, or let's say, or changes in our body because of this fight-flight response. In the other side, you can see other hormones that are also released in the bloodstream. When the hypothalamus is activated, not only the nervous system is activated and the adrenals, but also the cortex of the adrenals is activated. And we're going to release the cortisol release factor. It's a hormone produced in the hypothalamus that goes to the pituitary gland to secrete ACTH, that is another hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, and the adrenocorticotropic hormone goes to the cortical area of the adrenal glands and will increase precisely as a cascade of results like water retention and salt retention or sodium retention. The idea is to increase the bloodstream in a short time, also to have all the biological benefits to fight or flight. Okay? And remember, this is occurring daily in many people. I put this graph again just to contrast the function between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. For example, in the eyes, the parasympathetic nervous system constricts the pupils. but sympathetic dilates. Why? Because when we are in a fire, remember, sympathetic means fight and flight response. So always when we are talking to the sympathetic, we are talking about this fight or flight response. When we are talking about the parasympathetic, we are talking about rest and repair. Okay? Which of these two responses is the best? The two. There is no best or worst here. When we need to be on the survival modality, definitely we may need sympathetic nervous system. Imagine if we need to run away from danger and the parasympathetic nervous system is dominant in our bodies. Believe me, we're gonna die. We're gonna die under those circumstances. So it's necessary to be in the sympathetic modality when we are putting ourselves in our risk. But then, can we live under this modality forever? No. And people that cannot switch from this area to this area pay the price. And what is the price they pay? The health. They will become sick. And when they become sick, then you will read you can have the description of all those diseases that are related with the stress. Guess what? 98% of the diseases can be related with stress. Haha, yes. Because practically all the sympathetic nervous system is controlling the visceral function. Again, let's talk about the salivation, okay? You can see how the parasympathetic stimulates the salivation and the sympathetic inhibits, so produces dry mouth. In the heart, we talk about how the sympathetic nervous system accelerates the heart, but the parasympathetic inhibits. And lungs. In the sympathetic, relaxes the bronchus. Why? Because we need to have more air to oxygenize our blood and being pumped by the heart. And you see here, the parasympathetic constricts the bronchus. Digestive system. You can see how the parasympathetic nervous system stimulates all the activity in the GI tract, and the sympathetic inhibits the digestive activity. So people that live under stress cannot have a healthy digestive tract. Impossible. Impossible, because always will have inhibit the digestive function. So do you remember the gastritis? Someone would say, oh yes, gastritis. No, but it makes no sense. Gastritis is a resultant of too much gastric acid. That's a myth. That's not correct. Everybody that someone has gastritis thinks about, oh, I have too much, because even your doctor say, oh, you have gastritis, you have too much hydrochloric acid. And not necessarily. Remember, the sympathetic nervous system inhibits the digestive system. If someone is under a lot of stress and is having gastritis, think also about the mucus layer that recovers our stomachs. This mucus layer is protecting us against having our stomachs affected by the gastric acid. So it doesn't matter if it's too much or too little. If we don't have this mucus barrier in our stomachs, too little or too much gastric acid will burn our stomachs. So, well, just to name some, to quote some examples, okay? And more examples, but more specifically oriented for the cardiovascular system. And as I told you a few minutes ago, is the opposite. But they are not against one to other. They interact each other. I have a good example to understand the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Remember the cars, the shift cars? Well, then you have to understand the gas pedal is the sympathetic nervous system, and the brake should be the parasympathetic nervous system. One thing is not opposite to the other one. You need the gas to move, and you need the brake to stop. So it's the same here. After the sympathetic nervous system is dominant in the body, then the parasympathetic comes to slow down everything and what? Repair. Repair is when the heart is working so hard, the nutrients cannot get inside the heart. So we need to calm down the function, the cardiovascular function first, and then the nutrients start getting into the heart cells. Stress again. Oh my God, the enemy, the the enemy presented in the society. But you know something? Stress could be good or is good. The problem is how we face the stress. Also, the quantity of stress we are facing, definitely. But too much stress definitely will take you to a harmful stress. Too little won't really produce an stimulus to move on. So we should find a way the stress could be or should be beneficial for us. And this is the secret behind the stress, to find out the beneficial amount of stress and the proper responses, the proper way to see the stress by ourselves. So definitely people that definitely they took very high stress levels for many years, for a long period of time, they will go to an anxiety, panic, and anger, and then breakdown. Practically burnout syndrome and everything, the system starts crashing. Too little definitely is under load, is inactive, is laid back. So we may find the optimal stress levels in us, and more important, in the ones that we love as well. Because why is it so difficult to control stress? Why everybody's so, affected because of stress? Because definitely we never learn how to face the stress since we are kids. Remember this? Remember this? Remember this? This? Sometimes we are adults and we still doing this as a kid because we haven't been taught how to cope the stress normally, how to face it in a healthy way. And if we don't learn how to face the stress under these stages, we have to learn it here, but we have to learn it because definitely the stress will consume us. In Sanoviv, we are doing a test that is called max pulse, and you have an example of the max pulse. The max pulse is a test done here in Sanoviv in some of our programs. This is a very useful test for us because in the max pulse we are assessing in this area that you're seeing here. Let's say in the right side of the test, we are assessing the blood vessel health. This is an example, okay? But today I want to focus in this area. The technology behind the max pulse is called photoplethysmography. And in the max pulse, we can detect stress levels. For example, in this patient that I removed the name for sure, you can see the score of the stress of this person. 51 over 100. The ideal, that I have never seen someone like that, is 0 to 100. And if I could have the max pulse before the webinar, definitely I will be 91 over 100. But now I think I calm down. I will be now in 14, 20, which is considered to be normal or more normal. But you see how can max pulse give us an idea of the stress a person is living. For example, this person has a normal resistance to stress, has a normal physical stress, but you can see how the mental stress is very high. So if you put the two stressors together in this patient, you can see how this patient is suffering more stress than the one this person can cope or defeat. And definitely in this chart, you can see the balance in the autonomic nervous system of the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Wow, you can see this. Many people live like this in daily basis. Why? Because we haven't learned how to switch to the parasympathetic nervous system and allow our bodies being repaired. Definitely, this person should be diagnosed with a sympathetic nervous system dominance, and you can guess the myriad of symptoms that are produced because living under these circumstances. So the secret to cope the stress is relearn. Is find out ourselves. If you are a believer, You can talk about God. If you're not a believer, you don't need to be a believer. You need to be in contact of yourself, the nature, everything, the sun, the the everything, to put you again into the basics, into your basics, into the more less complex ways, the less complex person you was before. And there's many ways to relearn. Definitely here in Sanofi, we promote a lot of exercise as a way to learn how to cope the stress. Meditation, grounding is very important, to touch bare feet the grass or the earth, whatever, the sun, being in contact with the nature, sleep, proper sleep, and well, there's some other wonderful treatments as massages that can really help you to momentaneously disconnect. But relearn is way too much complex. Relearn means put in action several strategies and tools, therapeutical tools that are presented nowadays that really will help you to cope with the stress in a natural way. NET is a technique, homeopathy, acupuncture, meditation, counseling, definitely. There's many ways to do it, but if you can teach these techniques to the young ones, to your loved ones, you should do it, because believe me, if you teach the kids how to cope the stress in a healthy way, you are really preventing on them a lot of problems and consequences that these young people will eventually have. Okay, something that is not possible to do is this precisely. Autonomic nervous system for trade. So requires little to no exercise and you will get to eat as much as salt as you mean. You cannot sell your autonomic nervous system. You cannot trade it. You have it. But you know, you have it under control. It's under your control. It's your choice and it's your decision. Start learning how to cope the stress and be open to receive help, because that's another important thing. Sometimes we are not open to receive a help and we need it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And if you have questions, I will be pleased to answer all your questions, okay? Okay, I already start receiving some questions. Um, Thank you very much, Gloria Villarreal, for participating. What supplements help in handling stress? Wow, this is an interesting question. As you may know, as everybody, the stress affects us in a different way. Um, there's no treatment that may work for everybody, but I invite you to search about adaptogens, and I'm gonna write it down for you. So adaptogens are, and you're gonna get it by written, okay? Adaptogens are superior herbs, are treatments, herbal treatments that helps with your adrenal function. And the adaptogens are is plants that can adaptate to whatever biological function you need to have. Usually in Sanofi we use a lot of adaptogens, usually not as a single treatment, but as a part of a master plan, and we have found that is very useful. So I invite you, Donna, to research about adaptogens, and your doctor may know about it, okay? I have another question that says how we control stress. Wow, this is the $1 million question, and definitely everybody in a different way should learn, because, for example, our reactivity also conditions the way we we respond to stress. So for some people works yoga, for example. Disconnect and be more indeed or more in connection with themselves. For other people that is very active, I don't see an active person meditating at all. Maybe these people will be the sports, maybe performance sports. So it's a very unique thing, okay? Someone is Guller Ayler is asking me what is a type 2 wave, and he's referring about the max pulse. Well, the type 2 wave means that the other area of the max pulse is assessing or is checking the endothelium. Endothelium is the inner skin that recovers the blood vessels. And by the photoplethysmography technology of the max pulse, we can detect the elasticity of the endothelium and the blood vessel. So type 2, wave type 2 means a healthy endothelium and a healthy blood vessel condition. That's what the type 2 wave means. And thank you very much, Val, for participating. My pleasure. If someone is under prolonged stress for 1 to 2 years, what is the effect on the body? Well, this is a very interesting question, Rosalie, because, everybody resists the stress in a different way. I have had the opportunity to work to work, why not, as a doctor, with patients that have had a lot of stress in their lives and there's minimal impact on them. And I have seen other people that, according to them, there's have a lot of stress, but if you compare with the average, maybe not that much, and they have a lot of symptoms. So this is a unique response as well, Rosalie, because everyone may have a different resistance to stress. So 1 to 2 years can affect very deeply the body, depending on the resistance. For some people, could be nothing, but for some other people, could be very stressful, could be a huge challenge, okay? Thanks to you, Jeff. Very, very, very pleased to have you here. Okay, Nilda, you are asking me about grounding. I have heard you can get hookworms. Oh my God. Yes, a parasite roundworms from dirt. Wow. I'm shocked. Yes. Well, let me ask you this question in this way. Potentially, there's a lot of things. I will be more concerned about a nail, a rotten nail or a rotten cap than a hookworm or a glass, for example. But definitely it may exist outside in the ground, a lot of parasites and worms and things like that. But I personally believe, Nilda, the benefits of walking barefoot in the sand or in the earth or in the grass are way too much benefit than risks. If you walk barefoot, try to watch yourself and not be stepping on a glass or something like that can hurt you. Definitely, that's a risk. But remember, also every time that you go outside, we are on risk of being, run out by a car or having a car accident, whatever. I personally believe grounding brings you to way too much benefits than risks. And you can do grounding as well by being in contact with the water, by swimming or walking on the beach. Also could be a good thing. But thank you, Nila, to bring this. I never thought in this before, but you make me like, wow, that's a good topic. Miguel Aldama is asking if it is possible to reverse stress damage in the body. Wow, Miguel, this is a very interesting question. Thank you very much. Yes and no. Yes and no. The majority of symptoms or consequences produced in our bodies for stress can be reversed. But let's say, for example, if let me talk specifically about heart. I'm just gonna. Let me give you an example. Yes, heart. Let's talk about heart. Remember, I told you that when the heart is under a lot of stress and is working very hard, the heart is pumping too much blood for the rest of the tissues. But when remember that the heart has two momentums in the heartbeat. Is when the heart contracts is called systole, and when the heart relaxes is called diastole or diastole. Well, when the heart is in systole, in a systolic stage, the heart is like your wrist. You can take your hand and hold it very hard. There's no blood into your hand, as also is not blood into the heart when the heart is pumping. The heart is eating or is getting the nutrients when the heart is in a relaxed modality, is in diastole. So for many years, in people that could be, for example, may have a genetic background of cardiovascular disease and being under high stress, for some reason, this lack of oxygenation in the muscle of the heart may bring several consequences and damages that sometimes cannot be reversed. So that's why it's very important when we are healthy to discover how to keep us like that, healthy. So yes and no. Answer your question, yes and no. The majority of damages in the body by stress can be treated. Definitely you may find someone, a professional to help you with it. But it might be some symptoms that cannot be reversed. Joanne Hills is asking me, I'm a former visitor to Sanofi. Wow, thank you very much, Joanne. I hope I could meet you later or tomorrow. Goulart, you're welcome. Joanne Hill says, it is possible to get a stress test other than visiting Sanofi? Oh, I got it. Oh, yes, Max Pulse doesn't belong to Sanofi, okay? Max Pulse, you can Google Max Pulse, and you can find, maybe you can find the device in the website. Max Pulse is just a device that we acquire because it shows it's good for us and really fits to our needs. But yes, in the market, it should be a lot of devices that can be measuring the stress. Okay. How we can get the Max Pulse? Sorry, it's Max Pulse. Max Pulse. Let me write it down. I don't know if you can see it. But what's happening here? Let me spell it for you. It's M-A-X, Max, P-U-L-S-E, P-U-L-S-E, Max Pulse. So how do you spell Max Pulse? Yes, Max Pulse is M-A-X, P-U-L-S-E. How can we get the Max Pulse test at home? I think that maybe the test by itself you cannot get it, but maybe the device you can purchase it. But I wouldn't recommend you to get the device because it will happen the same as when people purchase the blood pressure device. Remember that the blood pressure device that you can take back home. When you purchase that device, people sometimes becomes obsessive in checking the blood pressure in the morning, at midnight, in the middle of the day, and at noon, and they continue checking the blood pressure, and they can become blood pressure checker maniacs or something like that. So maybe the same can happen with the Max Pulse. We don't want you to become Max Pulse maniacs as well. Maybe you can find someone in the area where you live that can provide this help to you. And I don't recommend, for example, if you check your stress levels, then you watch it in a graph or something like that, and then you start doing changes and implementing the recommendations given, maybe you can retest it and maybe you can see a difference, okay? It's what we do here in Sanofi when our patients are spending more than 2 weeks. We have a previous, the one that when they arrive and the one when they are leaving. Can you please write the name of the stress test? Oh, sorry. Larissa, I tried to write it down. Let me see if I can do it again. For some reason, I lost the ability to write down. People can see you down this. Oh, drawing menu. Oh, I don't know what happens with that writing, but I'm gonna spell it for you again. Okay, it's Max, M-A-X, Pulse, P-U-L-S-E. What homeopathic supplement would you recommend to help one relax? Well, Thank you, Rosalie, for your question. At this point, when you say relax, came into my mind about 40, 45 remedies, homeopathic remedies that can be a great idea for someone to get relaxed. So also in homeopathy, there is, you have to be more precise in determining how the stress affects you and what symptoms do you have because of stress, and give it to you a more individual and unique remedy to your stress. But I will say something because I don't want you to be like that. There's one homeopathic remedy that is very safe to use and fits for the majority of symptoms of stress, but you should be aware that you just have to take it under a lot of stress and just for a short period of time. It's not like a anxiolytic or hypnotic treatments given in the conventional medicine. So you just have to take it for a couple of days and then stop it. Why? Not because it's toxic. No, at all. This treatment is not toxic. It's because if you use it more than the necessary, then you won't have the benefits of the treatment when you need it. The medication or the remedy, the homeopathic remedy, is called Ignatia amara. Ignatia amara. And let me repeat it for you. I'm going to spell it for you. Give me a second. Ignatia amara. So it's I-G-N-A-T-I-A. Ignatia. I-G-N-A-T-I-A. Amara, that's the last name. The homeopathic remedies has name and last name. Amara is A-M-A-R-A. Amara, again. A-M-A-R-A. Remember, the homeopathic remedies has the Latin name, the scientific name of the plant, and this is a very popular plant. So one recommendation is that you can get Ignatia amara in your health food store and get it in the potency of 6C. 6, and then you add a C as comma, okay? 6, the number 6, and then C. It comes usually in a pellets form. So you can take, for example, 5 pellets when going to sleep, and you can take it 2 to 3 nights in a row. Usually I like to recommend these remedies at nighttime when you go to bed, but please try to not use more than 3 days. And if the stress is persistent, then you have to figure it out that you have to utilize some other strategies to cope the stress. Okay? Well, I think I resolved all your questions. It was a pleasure really to share this with you. I'm sorry again because of the inconveniences of the technical problems that we had at the beginning. So sorry about that, and we Sanoviv apologize about it, and we hope these problems would never be presented again. It was a pleasure sharing this with you, and I invite you sometimes, eventually, come to Sanoviv and to live the experience. I saw several patients presented in this webinar. I thank you for participating, and I thank as well all the other people that haven't had the opportunity to visit Sanoviv. I invite you to come to Sanoviv. Really, you will learn a lot here. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Lersa. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Rosalie. Thank you, Nilda. It was a pleasure talking to you. I miss you, Nilda. Okay, take care of you. And so, goodbye. And I'm looking forward to see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.